Welcome to Big Fella's Weight Loss for Men podcast with Darren and Mark. How you doing, Mark?
I'm good, mate. How you doing, Darren? You well?
Yeah, good, thank you, mate. Good, thank you. Been working away down in London today, mate, and on my way down now on the drive, I thought to myself, do you know what? Over the years, mate, I've done so many different diets. I've done like Slim and World, I've done fasting, I've done like a healthy eating diet whilst going to the gym, and they're all really good, mate, but I've never been consistent with it. It's always been a problem. Do you find the same?
Yeah, it's motivation sometimes, isn't it? It's just times I'm just sat there and I'm just like, I know what I need to do, and I know by doing it I'm going to get the results, but still the motivation is tough, and it's sometimes still just getting me to off the ground and getting it done. It's a tricky one, isn't it?
Like Slimming World, they say, don't they? It's not a diet, it's just a change of lifestyle. And to be fair, mate, you can eat loads on there, but just can't keep it going. I don't know what it is. It'd be really good to find out more about mindset.
Yeah, mindset, decision making, and motivation. I think today, we've got a great guest coming on who's an expert in this field. And when I say expert, he's probably the smartest guy that we've had on this podcast.
Definitely, mate. Definitely. Yeah, because the problem is, mate, nowadays, there's so many people who claim they're experts. So tell us more about our guest today, mate. What makes him an expert?
So today we welcome on the show Dr. Sheheryar Banuri, but a lovely guy who I met a few weeks ago, who is a Cambridge professor. He's a dean of Hughes College in Cambridge. And he's written a book recently called The Decisive Mind. He's a behavioural economist, and so his main job is like understanding economics and decision making behind that. But he's written this book, The Decisive Mind. So yes, this is an expert. There's people that claim to be experts. We've got an expert on the show today, and I think it's safe to say this is we're recording this after we recorded the interview, but it was a great chat, and the guy is very knowledgeable, very funny as well, and this will make for a great episode. What do you think, Darren?
Yeah, it really was, mate. I'm really excited to let people listen to it. And like you say, mate, you don't get a much better expert than someone who studies this at Cambridge University. So yeah, really good, mate. And it's a good one. Dr.
Sheheryar Banuri, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. We're honoured to have you on. We met a few weeks ago, didn't we? And on a local radio show through a mutual contact.
That's right. And where we realized that we were both interested in similar things. Yeah.
Yeah. So we featured on local radio, and I got to sit next to Mr. Banuri, and we spoke about our own little journeys, and here we are now on the Big Fellas podcast. So Sheheryar, let's just jump straight in. Tell us a bit about yourself and what you do.
Thanks, Mark. I'm a behavioral economist. I'm actually a associate professor of economics at the University of East Anglia, and dean and fellow at Hughes Hall, University of Cambridge. My day-to-day job, I'm lecturing on economics, but one of the areas that I specialize in is behavioral economics, which you can think of as a sort of mashup, if you like, between psychology and economics. So economics is mainly the science of making decisions with scarce resources, and psychology is the science of behavior and decision making. And so behavioral economics kind of puts those two things together, recognizing that mental resources, just like other resources like time, money, mental resources are also scarce resources, and it's how we use them that matters. So that's what I study.
What do you mean by mental resources? Sorry, what does that actually mean?
So mental resources, Darren, I mean, it's a great question. It basically means how you decide or how you make choices. So there's a simplified framework of decision making, which we call System One versus System Two. And so this is made popular by a Princeton psychologist called Daniel Kahneman. And the idea behind it is that there's two systems in your brain that are helping you make decisions. The system one sort of side of your brain, if you like, is making decisions emotionally based on gut feelings. It's making decisions quickly. It's not deliberating or being very thoughtful. It's just doing things. And a lot of our daily lives are being guided by these system one processes. So if you know, drive into work every day, you're not really, I mean, you're concentrating on driving, but it's not concentrating like you would be if you were, working or trying to learn something new. And then the system two side of the brain, which you use a lot less frequently, is about using your deliberative processes to try and make decisions. So that's what, if you like, the rational side of your brain, not the emotional side of your brain. That's taking all the information into account, thinking about it, and coming to the sort of quote unquote right decision or the rational decision, if you like. And so, what we talk about when we talk about mental resources is your ability to use that system two side of your brain to make decisions that are in line with what you quote should be doing, going to the gym or eating that salad, and away from the emotional side of the brain, which is what you're doing when you just don't feel like exerting or expending resources. So managing these mental resources is often critical in guiding our behavior, and that's really what we mean. So applied to weight loss, it's very much you know it's the mindset that's oftentimes the problem, right? That you should go to the gym, but somehow you end up on the couch eating that bag of potato chips.
Yeah. So I think to myself, a lot of the food choices I make are certainly from that side of my brain where I don't consider the options, I don't think it through, and I've always kind of put it down as just a habit, or I don't think through the consequences. So this should be a really interesting chat, diving into that sort of behavioral psychology, I suppose. Tell us a little bit about your book, The Decisive Mind.
So the book came out a couple of years back in August of 23, and it was inspired by my experience at climbing Kilimanjaro, as it happens. So I'm a big fella myself. I'm about oh gosh, I always forget the stones that we use here. I'm sorry. I still think it pounds, but it's like I'm about 280 pounds, somewhere around there, which is 20 stone, I think, roughly.
Okay.
Yes, near enough. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. I like to think it's 19, but if I'm honest, it's 20. And I've been struggling with weight loss my entire life. And that's been one of my sort of key challenges. Gained and lost weight plenty of times, going on crash diets mainly. And I was at one of my heavier periods when I decided to join my family on a hiking trip to Kilimanjaro. So it sounds exciting. We're going to scale the mountain. And Kilimanjaro, in terms of hiking, its success rate is fairly high. So it's somewhere like 95% success rate. So most people that attempt it do reach the summit. The thing about that is, though, most people that attempt it are often fit and have trained for it, right? So I was not fit. I had not trained for it. I had no business being there, and yet there I was trying to summit this thing. And so every day I eventually did it. well, and I did it with my family as well. So we're all immensely proud. But one of the things that my uncle said to me, who was on there, is he's like, "Oh, it's your brain that's carried you to the top." And I never really, honestly thought about it that way, but it was absolutely right that every day I'm actively wanting to quit, and somehow I just was willing myself to keep going. And one other thing that I'll tell you is that I got to the summit, and which was very exciting. And then I collapsed. I just wanted to be left there. So the guides, they carried me down. They didn't carry me down as in like put me on a stretcher, but they did, give me supported each. There are two guides, one underneath each armpit, who sort of walked me down. And I realized that in the summit, I kind of just left everything on there, like left all of it on there. And then when I got down, I was like, well, gosh, how did I do that? And so then I started to write about that experience. And eventually, because I'm a behavioral scientist, I started to pull together the literature on, or the academic literature, the science of decision making, to help us understand how these sorts of things are even possible, and how you can organize your resources to achieve these big milestones.
Awesome. So comparing that to climbing Kilimanjaro to making good food choices, you think that would be almost night and day, but I guess there's some similarities there, is there?
Absolutely, all day. I mean, that's that's exactly it. So one of the things about it is, we're often sort of confusing or conflating a couple of issues. So in the book, I kind of talk about this in more detail, but a lot of times people, when they think about weight loss, the most important decision that they think they're making is signing up for the gym. So they say, well, that's the most important decision. But in fact, that's the least important decision. The most important decision is deciding to go to the gym every day. Right? And so that is a decision that needs to be made over and over and over again. And if you're not a fan of the gym, for instance, or that's something that you don't necessarily like doing, it's a difficult decision. It's a difficult decision that you have to make every day. And so we oftentimes feel satisfied, typically around, if you think about New Year's resolutions, we say, okay, this year I'm going to do this. So the big decision is the resolution. That's not the big decision. The big decision is as it was similar for me. I mean, the big decision, I thought, was buying the plane ticket, or getting the sort of holiday package organized to go to Kilimanjaro. That wasn't the big decision. The big decision was every step that was being made after that, right? So with every step, there's a decision of, do I continue? Do I quit? Do I continue? Do I quit? And it makes it, the less sort of mental resources you have, the more difficult it is to make the right decision over and over again. So if you think about, like, you guys might have experienced this already, so maybe I'm preaching to the choir, but if you think about going to the gym after a long day of work, so you think about, like, the amount of discipline it takes when your energy is depleted, when you're tired, you're exhausted, and you actually have to go to the gym, or never mind going to the gym, cook something, right? You want make something healthy. It feels like a mountain, even though when you're full of energy, that might feel like the most simple thing in the world, right? Just preparing something and so on. So that's this idea of mental resourcing being organized to help you make the decisions that are in line with what you're trying to achieve.
So that makes a lot of sense. So when you, because you're right, do you know what? If you just had to go to the gym a few times, it would be quite easy. But to make that decision, that lifestyle change, to say, right, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, every year for the foreseeable future, That's a huge shift in mindset, right? So when we're talking about mental energy, I think are you saying that there's a lot more in that mental tank than what we realize? And how do we keep that going? And where do we start with our focus?
Yeah, so I think that's exactly right. So there's a lot more in there that we really, well, actually, I'd say more accurately, our decisions are based on our sort of perceptions or our ideas. Right? So we don't actually observe how much energy is left in our tank at any given point in time. Right? It's the hardest thing to estimate. So what you often have to do is think ahead of time so that you can use your remember we were talking about the system 2 side of the brain to actually make the decision that's in your best interest for over the long term. If we don't do that, if we sort of rely on times when we're tired and stuff, and we just saying to ourselves, oh, I'm just disciplined, I'll just push through. Yeah, you might do it 1 or 2 times, but sooner or later, you're making that emotional decision where you're like, oh my God, you know what? I really want that ice cream, or I just really want to sit and watch some reality TV or something. And the last thing I want to do is go to the gym. So there is this sort of mismatch between our decisions and the resources are the good decisions and the resources that it takes to make the good decisions. And I think the important thing here, Darren, is to be aware of times when you have the energy, you have the mental resources to make those good choices, and the times when you don't have the mental energy and the mental resources to make the good choices. And your strategies to work through those periods need to be different. And so you need explicit recognition of those ebbs and flows, those peaks and troughs.
Yeah. So this is making a lot of sense. So, the rational decisions for me, I feel like I'm a very good decision maker. My previous careers had probably helped with that. I'm known to my family and friends as a very rational person. I like to think things through. But I know in myself that a lot of my decisions, like you say, are that other part of my brain that does things out of habit, that does things because I do them all the time. And as you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, you're right. To make a rational decision in every turn in life would be extremely exhausting. To think everything through that much would allow no mental respite, right? So I sit here and I'm thinking, well, how do we identify the things that we're doing as habit at the moment and turn them into more conscious decisions, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think this gets to the heart of it, right? So how do we get the stuff that we're doing and organize it towards the stuff that we want to do? Right? If you'll allow me to kind of rephrase what you just said, right, is that I know that I want to achieve this one thing. I also know that I'm not doing the things that will lead me towards achieving those things, and yet somehow I still want what I want, and I'm still doing what I'm doing. So I need to be able to change certain things. So either I change what I want and I say like, okay, I don't want that anymore. I want to, I want this other thing wherever it's leading. Or I say, okay, well, that is still what I want. And now I have to organize my life around that. So I think a lot of the trick to that is to actually try and take these decisions ahead of time. In other words, anticipate when and where you have these ebbs and flows, where you'll be able to make good decisions, no problem, where you'll be able to make bad decisions for sure, and try and change or work around those. So it's explicitly recognizing that you're a flawed human being. Discipline is not the only answer. It's not just, oh, that I'll be, I'm a man and I'll be more steely and I'll just force my brain to do it. it doesn't work like that. So you have to recognize your limitations, and then you have to recognize how best to work within them. So if I'll give an example of this. So suppose you just want to go to the you say you want to get fitter and you want to go to the gym, and the only time you can go to the gym is in your commute after work, right? So you say like 6 p.m. is the only time. I think that's true for a lot of us, where that's only the reasonable amount of time when you can actually go. And but that's when you're tired. So oftentimes you're making that decision after you leave work. So you're driving and you're saying, oh man, I'm tired. Well, let me just quit today and let me just not do that. And that just compounds over and over again. So what you have to do is try and recognize that that's what you're doing and try and work your way around it. Now, what does that mean? First, and this is a very, very deep field, so forgive me if I'm going on a bit too long, but I'm just going to say one thing, which is if you think about motivation, motivation is the core with which we do things. So if you're what we call intrinsically motivated, then you'll do it for free, right? So I'm a big video game guy. I'll play video games for free. Oh, well, I do play video games all the time, and nobody's paying me, and I'll still continue to do it because I'm intrinsically motivated to do that. Some people are intrinsically motivated to go to the gym. If that's not you, nothing to be ashamed of. That's fine, right? That's just not your orientation. But there's other forms of motivation that you can tap into. So there's social motivation. So people have some people ascribe to having a gym buddy who sort of forces you or engages you. Sometimes there's a personal trainer who's also there to provide that social pressure to get you there. Other people might rely on some big event that's happened, so they come through some healthcare crisis, or oftentimes people say, oh, I had a child, I need to get well for them, or, for quitting smoking, you hear about it a lot. Somebody close to you got lung cancer and now you need to change. So that's another form of motivation where you see the value of the outcome, not the activity, which is different. So there's value in the activity. That means I love going to the gym. There's value in the outcome, meaning I love what's going to happen once I go to the gym. There's, the social side. There's ego motivation. Like, what do you mean I can't go to the gym? I can go to the gym. I can do whatever I like, right? So there's ego as a motivator. And then there's also other strategies like paying somebody money. So you have to pay somebody every time you don't go or you miss an appointment. Now, here's the trick that nobody tells you. Everybody will have some strategy, or they'll say like, oh, you should do this, you should do that. But the thing is, all of these elements of motivation work differently for different people. And oftentimes it's not one thing. Oftentimes it's multiple things that you need to sort of put together to kind of get you over those humps, or anticipate those periods when you know that you're going to make an emotional decision and you need support in some way or the other to get you through it. That requires planning, thinking about these things up front and so on. But, that's the reason why I wrote this book, actually, is to give you a framework to help you organize and get over those things.
Can I just ask a question? Because it's really interesting how we all are motivated differently. And as you were saying that, I could feel that, and we've spoken to a lot of men on this podcast, and you're absolutely right. People have different motivations. Does that work the same the other way? So, for example, I have some friends who find it demotivating, that they feel that there's social pressure when, for example, when they go into a gym and they're full of those 20-year-olds with their abs out, wearing those tight tops, and they feel like they're really motivated when they first go in there, but then it's almost like the opposite happens and they become less motivated because of the environment they're in. So can it work both ways, is my question.
Absolutely. I mean, demotivation is a real thing. It happens. And in fact, there's also one of the forms of motivation that often we don't talk about is something called amotivation. Amotivation means you're just not interested in doing it no matter what, right? Like that sometimes there's activities where there's just no way to do it. Now, that's a lot less than people think. People think, oh, I'm just not motivated to do that. It's not true that it's probably something about those activities. Like you said, it's going to the gym, watching all those people that are fit, or organize or talk to each other, high five each other. They look like they're having a great time. And that feels like, oh, this isn't, you feel a little bit of like, it's psychological sort of what we call cognitive dissonance. You sit there and you'll be like, oh, I don't belong here somehow. This is not me. Again, it's recognizing that is a real thing that you're experiencing, right? It's not something that you're just, I'll just get over it or man up or something along those lines. If that is the case, do something else. Right? Like go walking, cycling, something that doesn't put you in that thing. Because, oftentimes, like I can tell you, throughout my life, people talk to me about what the best exercise is, what the most efficient exercise is. Like swimming is the thing that I hear over and over again. Swimming, very efficient, blah, 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 good use of time. I'm hydrophobic. I hate water. And so if you tell me that go swimming, it's the worst. It's the worst possible thing. And so the answer, if you're trying to get into it, do something that you like, something that you enjoy, or more accurately, something that you hate the least. Do something that you hate the least. And that's the thing that will get that going. Because anytime, and it's not an all or nothing mindset, right? It's not that, oh, if I don't go to the gym every day for 3 hours a day until, from now till the end of time, it's all pointless. That's a trap. That's a decision-making trap. It's not true. Anytime you're off the couch, you're doing something that's in line with your goal. If your goal is to lose weight. So it's small decisions over and over.
Definitely. I wanted to pick up on the all or nothing mindset, and it's something that is so real and has been for me during sort of times where I've been trying to lose weight, where I mean, all right, I'm all in, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to eat healthy, and then I just have that sod it moment where I eat and have a cheat meal or a cheat snack, then it becomes a cheat day, a cheat week, and you're just well and truly off the wagon. Tell us a bit about, I'm trying to rationalize how it is and why it is, because it happens and it's a real thing.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% that's a real thing, Mark. And it's because, I mean, the thing about this is that oftentimes we think things are independent, meaning the decision to go to the gym today has nothing to do with the decision to go to the gym yesterday. Like these two things are completely independent. They're not completely independent. They're actually very much dependent because you're the one who's making that decision over and over again. So lots of times what happens is they compound on each other. So one bad decision becomes another bad decision, becomes another bad decision, and they sort of stack. And it gets more and more difficult to get back on the wagon, if you like, because those decisions are stacking over and over and over and over again. And so in your mind, you have this feedback loop that develops, right? So if you think about like, just ask anybody who wants to go to the gym, and gyms are full of people. By the way, in January, that's the best time for gyms, right? They all sell these annual plans because people have New Year's resolutions, and everybody decides that this is the year where they're going to change. And so if you look at the data of gym people going to the gym, like the Google publishes mobility data and so on. They made it public during the pandemic. You see these clear spikes around January when people are starting to go, and then it tapers off very, very quickly. And that's because, you start off well and you say, okay, I'll go to the gym, and okay, that was good. That was fine. I'm hurting a little bit now. But I kind of liked it the next day, but you're still tired. So the next day, you're like, oh man, what you remember from that decision is that you're tired. And so you'll just stay in, you'll relax. The next day when you're making the decision, you remember from yesterday when you didn't go to the gym, how good that felt. Remember when you rested on the sofa, when you got some nice TV in, you got some good ice cream in, and so then that influences your decision. That influences the perception of the reward that you're going to get from sitting on the couch today and tomorrow and the day after, and the day after, and the day after. And that's all about motivation. You're motivated to not go to the gym, and that and if you keep ignoring the other ways that which you can motivate yourself and the reasons why you're going to the gym, then that's how you'll stay off the wagon. So it's very real. These things compound.
So, what's the best way to avoid that then? Because we all know that if you're living a fit, healthy lifestyle, you do actually feel better in yourself. So, how do you counteract what you're saying? How do you stop yourself falling into that trap, shall we say, of having a rest day, and getting lazy, if you like? How do we keep going? How do we keep motivated?
So you said something very interesting, Darren, which is, we all know that if we're fit, we'll enjoy a healthy lifestyle and we'll feel better. But do we really know that? I mean, that's the thing, right? So we know that rationally. We know that from sort of science, right? And we know that from the system 2 side of the brain. But remember the emotional side, that's still there, and that's still guiding all those decisions, right? So lots of times they're not operating the same way. They're saying, look, the other side, the other thing about human behavior, which is, I mean, very, very consistent, is the fact that we're impatient. We're impatient, and what being impatient means is that we're overweighting rewards that we get now, today, versus rewards that we get in the future. In other words, if the ice cream that I'm eating right now gives me this incredible hit in my brain, and so I really want to continue having that. And yes, I know that I'll be diabetic in like 10 years or whatever, and maybe I'll lose my sight and lose my limb and lose X, Y, and Z. But that's 10 years from now. And 10 years from now feels almost like a different person. And so in the moment when you're making that decision, yes, you're absolutely right that everybody knows that leading a healthy lifestyle leads to you feeling better. But it's one side of your brain that knows that, not the other side. And so that's when we talk about organizing mental resources so that you're able to make decisions from the rational side of your brain, that's better for you because the rational side of the brain knows that that's what's going to happen. But the emotional side of the brain, it's very limited in its scope. It's not thinking beyond next week, right? It's just, and we can all think about times when we've made bad decisions because, hey, it just felt good in the moment. That's what I wanted to do.
So how do we yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I almost want you to say there's a switch that you can press to keep you on that rational side of your brain, but I know it's not that simple. So I'm just wondering if you have any way of trying, do you have any tips for keeping that rational side of your brain going, or is it impossible?
No, it's not impossible. I mean, this is and people do it all the time. And in fact, when I wrote the book, I mean, a lot of times, what it is more of it's falls in the popular science category, but oftentimes people think of it as a self-help book. But lots of times self-help is not really useful because self-help typically comes from people who've achieved some big thing, and they're just a different kind of person. Oftentimes they're just not normal people. Celebrities, not normal people. They're not like you and me, right? They're different. They act differently. Their motivations are different, and so they oftentimes are giving you advice based on their life experience, but their life experience for a lot of us tends to be out of reach. Whereas a more scientific treatment of this is trying to say, like, look, we've got these flaws and we have to work around them. So it goes back to, again, being more mindful, recognizing that you have these flaws, and trying to build in strategies to kind of undercut or so it's recognizing. For instance, I'll give you a great example of this. Say that that when you can like work is so emotionally draining that you dislike it so much or you feel so unfulfilled that at the end of the day it just drains you physically, emotionally, all of that. That is the time when you're going to make a decision that's maybe not in your best interests and so on. Oftentimes, you need to make that decision, right? You need to make that decision to bring yourself back into some sort of normalcy to compensate for the horrible day that you had and all of that stuff. Fine, that's okay. But what's important is to recognize that there's other points in your life where you have the ebb and flow that I'm talking about, right? This is a dip. There's other periods where you have this crest, where you have energy, where you're in a good mood. There are times when that's true. You have those. I promise you have those. So even if you can do something during those periods, and even if you fall off the wagon on the other periods, it's all right. Just make sure to organize, compensate, do those things, work within your limitations. Work within your limitation. Of course, that comes from, it's easier said than done, yes, where it comes from recognizing that you have limitations, but you're a beautiful, flawed human being. We all are, and we're doing the best we can.
It's a lot about self-awareness then, isn't it? In understanding your flaws.
100%.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And how about sort of like, I guess, environmental tweaks? Is there anything else going on sort of in our environment maybe that can have some impact?
Yeah, that's a great point, Mark. And actually, so there's a whole sort of sub-science called choice architecture. This is the idea about organizing choices in a way that it makes it easy for you to make the decision that's good for you or right for you. So a small, well, I'll give two different examples about that. One is that some people will implement rules like, I don't keep any snacks in the house. So the snacks have to be at the store. And if I want a snack, that's fine, but I have to go and walk to the store to get it and bring it back. So I make that decision, the bad decision, a little bit more difficult, and the the good decision a little bit easier. So that's about organizing life choices around that. There's also this other strategy that one of my friends, Katie Milkman, talks about called temptation bundling, which is about bundling a thing that you don't like to do with a thing that you like to do. So there was what she did was demonstrated this with audiobooks, right? This is, of course, an older study, but you can do that with, like, say, Netflix, where you say, like, if you really enjoy watching TV or watching some show, you just say, look, I will only watch the show when I go to the gym. If I'm not in the gym, I'm not watching that show. And so you organize those choices around so as to make the decision that's in your interest, the thing that you want to do, easier, and the thing that you want to do for your long-term sake, easier, and the thing that you want to do emotionally, harder, to try and just make your life a little bit easier. And that's really about organizing. I mean, people put in motivational things like gym buddies are also that I don't like going to the gym, but I really enjoy hanging out with this friend. So this friend takes me to the gym. That's also, a sort of reward, if you like. So that's the sort of thing that we're talking about. That's all about choice architecture.
I really like that. I really like the idea of saying, I really enjoy doing this thing, but I'm going to use that as a reward system when I've done something I don't enjoy as much. That could be very quite powerful. I think that would, the way my brain works, I think that would be really good.
That
Yeah.
And that's a good point, Darren. I mean, that's the thing. Like it's also about like being self-aware, like recognizing that some things work for some people, other things work for other people. And oftentimes there's little bits of each of these. So there's little bits of wisdom from each of these that you can apply for different contexts, right? That will help. So I'm deeply suspicious of people who give advice that is like, oh yeah, just gym buddies or just personal trainers or just, it's about like finding all these different strategies, finding what works for you and applying that consistently. So if that resonates with you, do it. Yeah.
And certainly that's kind of our approach to weight loss is there's the way we see it. There's lots of different ways to lose weight, and it is about finding one that works for you. And it's a bugbear of me that I talk about on this podcast a lot is you have, say, like, I don't know, gym influencers, for example, on social media saying, if you want to lose fat, this is how you do it. I go, well, that may have worked for you. It may not have worked for you. You may not have even had to lose weight, but that's another point. And yeah, it is. I think there's a lot to be said just for finding something that works for you.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like we're all sort of wired differently. That's how we are, right? We've been shaped by our experiences, our genetics, all of those things together to make us who we are. And yes, there's people. I mean, the strongest proof I have of this is there's people out there who just love going to the gym for its own sake, right? They just do it for the sake of the joy that it gives them. I can't think of somebody that's more different from me than somebody like that. But there's people that exist like that. So we have to recognize that I'm not them. So I'm not going to be able to do them, but I have to find my way. And that's the hard lesson. You just have to find it.
My wife is one of those people, because if my wife will go to the gym a minimum of 3 times a week, often more. And she goes because it's headspace for her. So whereas I'll be at the gym thinking, this is how I want to get out of here, she'll be at the gym and it clears her head, it clears her mind, and it makes it, she knows she gets that benefit from it. So actually she gets more grouchy when she doesn't go to the gym. But I think this is where, this podcast is, as we know, sponsored by Man v Fat. This is where me and Mark have found that so successful, I think, is because we both love football. We're both not the best at football, are we, Mark? Let's be honest. But we enjoy playing it. And it's an environment where you can play with like-minded people. And like you were saying earlier, you get the rewards for your weight loss. So actually, it digs into that, what you were saying, is that if you lose weight a week and then you go and weigh in, you're on the score pitch is enhanced by your weight loss score, and you could win the game overall. So it's really, and I think for men that works really well, especially a lot of the time. Yeah,
Gamifies it.
A game, yes. So that's exactly what I was going to say. So there's a thrill of competition. Competition is also motivating. Lots of times that's more motivating for men than it is for women. But that's just how it is, how the gender kind of breaks down, and so that's another form of it's another form of an incentive, right? Where you look at that and you say, okay, well, I achieved something. I can tell you, in my own journey, when I've lost weight, so there's been 2 different periods when I've lost 100 pounds in a stretch. So it took me 6 months, which is already, by the way, very, very rapid. But it was crash diets, and it was specifically the Atkins diet or the ketogenic diet. That's what I think it was called. Very bad for you if I remember my science right. But the reason why I was able to stick with that diet and not other diets is that at the beginning of that diet, you jump on the scale and you see movement every day. So you get feedback every day that whatever it is, like, yes, I hurt myself yesterday, like I felt really bad, but oh, look, this movement on the needle on the scale makes it worth it. And it was mainly water weight that you're losing, but the movement, that signal, that feedback was really, really important. That was the reward for me. Man v Fat, like you said, there's a reward that's structured, that's outside, that's about the score, that's about competing. That's another example of a reward. The strategy that you liked about bundling Netflix with going to the gym, that's another form of a reward. So it's about recognizing what those rewards are to compensate for the displeasure, if you like, from going to do things that are good for you in the long run.
You're
Definitely.
almost going back to that instant gratification, aren't you? Because you said, we're not very good at looking at the longer term things. So we know we might get diabetes in 5, 10, 15 years time. But actually, if you're managing to reward yourself regularly, then you're far more likely to be in a better mindset.
Absolutely. And I always I joke with my wife that like the two things that I love the most in my life are well, but besides my daughter, but is ice cream and video games. Those are the two things and if I could figure out a way to simultaneously go to the gym and eat ice cream or simultaneously go to the gym and play video games. I haven't figured out how to do that yet. But if I could do that, then that would be like perfect for me. I'd be going to the gym every day. It's just that I can't. You need precision. I need to be sitting down. I can't do it.
Oh, I love that. Just while we're on the subject of Man v Fat, Darren, I think this is probably a good time just to drop in. We do have a sign-up code for our listeners, don't we?
We do, mate. Yeah. So if you're interested in football or rugby now, Mark, and you want to go and play, lose a bit of weight, like we were saying here, get your mind in gear, hopefully, then you can go to manvfatfootball.org and use the promo code. Go on, Mark.
Big fellas, and get your sign-up fee for just £1.
Brilliant. £1.
Not bad at all, eh?
Not bad at all, mate. And to be fair, a very reasonable monthly fee, and you get to play football with the lads once a week. And, going through this episode, what we've been talking about here, it gets you part of a community. You get to go with your gym buddies, or shall we say football or rugby buddies in this case. You get a bit of banter with the lads, and you get to go and play the sport you love. So, yeah, £1. Use the promo code Big Fellas. There's a link in the show notes.
Go. I think this is a good opportunity to just segue into a slightly different direction here, Sheheryar. You're a big fan of stand-up comedy, is that right?
Yeah. Yes, I am. In fact, I call myself a comedian because, and I think I can. I got 10 pounds once, so I'm a professional. and so I'm often performing and it's the other thing that I love besides video game and ice cream.
What got you into that then? I've always wondered, like, because it takes some nerve, doesn't it, to go and stand in front of a group of people and to tell jokes. How did you get into it?
It's a funny story actually, because I come from a family that's funny. I think that's true for a lot of comics. We sort of grow up around like somebody's funny in the family or somebody's crazy or something like this. And one of the things that you sort of learn how to do or learn how to appreciate at an early age is changing the emotional energy in the room. So that's the thing that you really like, that grips you. And that was true for me. I had some uncles who every time they would come into a room, it would just change, no matter what was going on. It would just change the energy to something else. And I also noticed how people just love them. So I really thought I'd try and do it, but I didn't get the nerve to try it until I was 18 years old, went off to college. And there's just an open mic night, and somebody said, does somebody want to have a go? And so I said, okay. And I told some of my uncle's jokes, actually, it's funnily enough. And and they landed. And the feedback that I got, like the laughs that I got, is like it's comedians will tell you it's like a drug. It's once you get it, you can't stop. You just want it more and more and more. But then I stopped. I called up my mom and I told her that that I'd started stand up, and she was like, "I sent you off to college. You're there to study. You're not never to do that again." And so she kind of got me off of the thing. And then eventually I studied, got my PhD, started a professor job, and so on. And then eventually, at the young old age of 44, started back up again.
Brilliant. Fantastic. And I guess to sort of link it all together, have you ever seen any connection between sort of making people laugh and stand-up comedy and helping people make better decisions?
Do you know, it's so funny because comedians will talk about what comedy is, and people have different takes on it. But one thing that I like, I mean, some people say things like it's about building tension and releasing that tension. I think for me, comedy is a lot about subverting expectations. Like, so making you think one way and then just changing it up at the last minute, right? And in some sense, it's a magic trick, because a magic trick kind of also makes you do that, and you get this sort of surprise from that. And it's an involuntary laughter is oftentimes involuntary, which is I think great. And I think there's a lot of behavioral science in there. So a lot of comedians are intuitively, they just understand how people are thinking when they say certain things. And once you understand how people are thinking, that's where the funny comes in, because you need to know what they're thinking before you can sort of pull the rug out from under them. I'm not the best comedian in the world, I admit that, but I think that's one of the things that I find that's sort of very common between the two. And I think you need to be a very good a student of human behavior in order to be a good comedian, but also to be a good behavioral scientist.
I love that. That's brilliant. And I guess we'll begin to wrap it up there. But what would be sort of your one key takeaway if you're a big fella who's looking to lose weight and he's telling you, look, I just haven't got the motivation, so I'm really struggling with motivation. What would be the one key takeaway for our listeners on that?
So I think the most important thing to recognize is that you can say that I need to lose weight, but that's not a decision. That's not the decision. That's an aspiration, or sort of a larger goal, if you like, but that's not the goal. The goal then is to break that big aspiration down into small decisions that you have to make every day, and recognize that each of those decisions are going to require effort, and you have to get some reward in exchange for that effort. And so it requires not stopping at the point where you say, oh, I need to lose weight, but thinking through the next steps. What do I need to do it? How can I do it? How can I make sure I do it consistently? How can I do that every day? At what point in the day can I do it? Who can I rely on to help me get through it? Who can, big me up after I do it? I mean, my wife jokes with me because every time I go to the gym, I'll come home and announce it. And I say, oh, I went to the gym today. And she's just like, what do you want from me? Okay, you're supposed to go to the gym. But what I want from her is for her to say, great job, because that's a reward. And that's also a reward that I'm seeking is sort of accepted. So just, don't stop at the big idea. Break it down into decisions and organize your life to make it easier for you. And you'll get there. I promise you'll get
some really good advice there, I think. And just to let anyone know who's listening, we will put a link to The Decisive Mind in the show notes. So you can go and click on there, find the book. But again, thank you ever so much for coming on. and we will see you again soon.
Thank you very much for having me.